Good morning, students. Here, Mrs. Neelam Jain from SKM Public School. Students, today I am going to teach you history chapter number 6, towns, traders and craftspersons. Today you are going to learn about towns, two types of towns, administrative centers and temples, towns and pilgrimage centers. Here, Urathan, the capital of Cholas, the perennial river Kaveri flows near this beautiful town. Swaraj's temple, built by King Janaka Chola. Besides the temple, there are palaces with mandals or pavilions. Kings hold courts in the mandalas, issuing orders to their subordinates. So Thanjavur, the capital of Cholas, was a great administrative center. One could hear the bells of the Rajeshwara temple built by Raja Chola. Besides the temple, there were palaces with mandapas or pavilions. The town bustled with markets selling grains, spices, cloth and jewelry. So this is administrative centers. The perennial river Kaveri flows near this beautiful town, that is Thanjavur. One hears the bell of Rajeshwara temple built by King Raja Chola. The townspeople are all praised for its architect Kunjara Menon Raja Peruntha Chauhan, who has proudly carved his name on the temple wall. Inside is a massive Shiva Linga. Besides the temple, there are palaces with mandapas or pavilions. Kings hold court in these mandapas, issuing orders to their subordinates. There are also barracks for the army. The town is bustling with markets selling grain, spices, cloth and jewelry. Water supply for the town comes from wells and tanks. The Salia weavers of Thanjavur and the nearby town of Urayur are busy producing cloth for flax to be used in the temple festival, fine cottons for the king and nobility, and coarse cotton for the masses. Some distance away at Swami Malai, the sthapatis or sculptors are making exquisite bronze idols and tall ornamental bell metal lamps. So student, why do you think people regarded Thanjavur as a great town? Thanjavur was the capital of Chola Empire. Thanjavur was a temple town with Rajeshwara temple in it. It gave employment to a huge number of people, thus becoming a center of opportunities. Due to all these reasons, Thanjavur was regarded as a great town. This is picture of Kaveri river. Then temples, towns and pilgrimage centers. Urathan is also an example of a temple town. Temple towns represent a very important pattern of urbanization, the process by which cities develop temples for society rulers built temples to demonstrate their devotion to various deities, pilgrims who flocked to the temples, also donations. Thanjavur is also an example of temple town. Temple town represent a very important pattern of urbanization. The process by which cities developed temples were often central to the economy and society. Rulers built temples to demonstrate their devotion to various deities. They also endowed temples with grants of land and money to carry out elaborate rituals, feed pilgrims and priests, and celebrate festivals. Pilgrims who flocked to the temples also made donations. जो भी pilgrims धार्मिक यात्रा के लिए लोग आते थे तो वो क्या देते थे, डोनेशंस भी देते थे. Temple authorities used their wealth to finance trade and banking, and gradually a large number of priests, workers, artisans, traders, etc. settled near the temple to cater to its needs and those of the pilgrims. Thus grew temple towns. Towns emerged around temples such as those of Bilaswamin, Bilsa or Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh and Somnath in Gujarat. Other important temple towns included Kanchipuram and Madurai in Tamil Nadu and Tirupati in Andhra Pradesh. Pilgrimage centers also slowly developed into townships. Vrindavan, which is in Uttar Pradesh, and Tiruvananthamalai, Tamil Nadu are examples of two such towns. Ajmer, Rajasthan was the capital of Chauhan kings in the 12th century and later became the Suba headquarters under the Mughals. It provides an excellent example of religious coexistence. Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, the celebrated Sufi saint, you will also see in chapter number 8, who settled there in the 12th century, attracted devotees from all creeds. Near Ajmer is a lake Pushkar which has attracted pilgrims from ancient times. And students, your work is to make a list of towns in your district and try to classify these as administrative centers or as temple or pilgrim centers. This you will do in NCERT book 78 page. This is a question given here. So what we have concluded in temple towns and pilgrimage center, Thanjavur is also an example of temple town. Temple towns represent an important pattern of urbanization. Rulers built temples to demonstrate their devotion to several deities. They endowed temples with land and money to carry out elaborate rituals, feed pilgrims and celebrate festivals. Towns emerged around temples such as those of Bilaswamin in Madhya Pradesh and Somnath in Gujarat. Pilgrimage centers, Vrindavan and Tiruvananthamalai are examples of such such towns. Then a network of small towns. So they emerged from large villages. They had a mandapika where nearby villagers brought their produce to sell. They had market streets called Haat or Hatta. There were different streets for different kinds of artisans. Usually a Samanta in later times, a Zamidar built a fortified palace. A Samanta levied taxes on traders, artisans and articles of trade. So a network of small towns had mandible or men of later times to which nearby villages brought their produce to sell. They also had market streets called here we can say hata here. Hata. Later times lined with shops for different kinds of artisans. Some traders lived in town, others traveled from town to town. Zamindar built a fortified palace in or near these towns. Alauddin administrative measures were successfully with to the threat of Mongol invasions. So from the 8th century onwards, the subcontinent was dotted with several small towns. These probably emerged from large villages. They usually had a mandapika or mandi of later times, to which nearby villagers brought their produce to sell. They also had market streets called hatta, lined with shops. Besides, there were streets for different kinds of artisans such as potters, oil pressers, sugar makers, toddy makers, smiths, stone masons, etc. While some traders lived in the town, others traveled from town to town. Many came from far and near to these towns to buy local articles and sell products of distant places like horses, salt, kafoor, saffron, bitter nut, and spices like pepper. Usually a samanta, or in later times a zamindar built a fortified palace in or near these towns. They levied taxes on traders, artisans, and articles of trade, and sometimes donated the right to collect these taxes to local temples which had been built by themselves or by rich merchants. These rights were recorded in inscriptions that have survived to this day. There were taxes on markets. This is the summary I am telling you from our 10th century inscription from Rajasthan, which lists the dues that were to be collected by temple authorities, and these were taxes in kind of sugar and jaggery, dyes, thread and cotton, on coconut, salt, areca nuts, butter, sesame oil, on cloth. Besides, there were taxes on traders, on those who sold metal goods, on distillers, on oil, on cattle fodder, and on loads of grain. Some of these taxes were collected in kind while others were collected in cash. Students, you will find more about present day taxes on markets. So you will find out more about present day taxes on markets, who collects these and how are they collected and what are they used for. Students, the present day taxes on markets are property tax, service tax, sales tax, etc. Central or state government collect these taxes through revenue departments. They are collected in cash. The money thus collected is used for the welfare of the society. Then the craft persons of Lidar were so famed for their inlay work in copper and silver that it came to be called Bidhi Paschal or Mishoka community, consisting of goldsmiths, bronzesmiths, blacksmiths, masons and carpenters were essential to the building of temples, also played an important role in the building of temples, also played an important role in the construction of palaces. Then traders, big and small. There were many kinds of traders. These included the Banjaras. Several traders, especially horse traders, formed associations with headmen who negotiated on their behalf with warriors who bought horses. Since traders had to pass through many kingdoms and forests, they usually traveled in caravans and formed guilds to protect their interests. There were several such guilds in South India from the 8th century onwards, the most famous being the Manigramam and Nanadesi. These guilds traded extensively both within the peninsula and with Southeast Asia and China. There were also communities like the Chetiyars and the Marwadi Oswal who went on to become the principal trading groups of the country. Gujarati traders, including the communities of Hindu Baniyas and Muslim Bohras, traded extensively with the ports of the Red Sea, Persian Gulf, East Africa, Southeast Asia and China. They sold textiles and spices in these ports and in exchange brought gold and ivory को बोलते हैं हाथी दांत को from Africa and spices, tin, Chinese blue pottery and silver from Southeast Asia and China. The towns on the west coast were home to Arab, Persian, Chinese, Jewish and Syrian Christian traders. Indian spices and clothes sold in the Red Sea ports were purchased by Italian traders and eventually reached European markets, fetching very high profits. Spices grown in tropical climates here, pepper, cinnamon, nutmegs, dried ginger, etc. became an important part of European cooking, and cotton cloth was very attractive. This eventually drew European traders to India. We will shortly read about how this changed the face of trading and towns. So, network of small towns, they emerged from large villages. They had a mandapika where nearby villages brought their produce to sell. They had market streets called haat. There were different streets for different kinds of artisans. Usually a Samanta, in later times a Zamindar, built a fortified palace, and Samanta levied taxes on the traded artisans and articles of trade. And taxes were on sugar, jaggery, dyes, thread, cotton, etc. These were taxes on traders, distillers, oil, cattle, fodder, etc. Some taxes were collected in kind while other were collected in cash. I am telling what we have learnt till now. So traders, big and smalls. In this there were many kind of traders like Banjaras. Several traders, especially horse traders, formed associations with headmen who negotiated on their behalf with warriors who bought horses. Communities like the Chetiyars and the Marwadi Oswal went on to become the principal trading groups of the country. Gujarati traders traded extensively with the ports of the Red Sea, Persian Gulf and East Africa, etc. The Panchals or Vishwakarma community consisting of goldsmiths, bronzesmiths, blacksmiths, masons and carpenters were essential to the building of temples. Weavers such as the Saliyar or Kaikolars emerged as prosperous community. Then there were some closer look like Hampi. Hampi, it is located in the Krishna Tungabhadra basin. The ruins at Hampi reveal a well fortified city. The architecture was distinctive. The buildings had splendid arches, domes and pillared halls. They had well planned orchards and pleasure gardens. Temples were the hub of cultural activities. Then you will read about in this NCERT book about Surat. Surat along with Cambay and Ahmedabad was the emporium of western trade. It has also been called the gate to Makkah as many pilgrim ships set sail from here. Surat was the gateway for trade with West Asia. In the 17th century, the Portuguese, Dutch and English had their factories and warehouses at Surat. The textiles of Surat were famous for their gold lace borders, that is zari. The Kathiawar Seths or Mahajans had huge banking houses at Surat. The Surat Hundis were honored in Cairo in Egypt, Basra in Iraq, and Antwerp in Belgium. So hundi, students, it is a note recording a deposit made by a person. The amount deposited can be claimed in another place by presenting the record of the deposit. So hundi, it is a note recording a deposit made by a person. Then emporium, its meaning is a place where goods from diverse production centers are bought and sold. Then you will read about Mosalipatnam. This is the town of Mosalipatnam, lay on the delta of the Krishna river. It was the most important port on the Andhra coast. The fort of Mosalipatnam was built by the Dutch. The Qutub Shahi rulers of Golconda imposed royal monopolies on the sale of textiles, spices and other items. In 1686 to 87, Aurangzeb annexed means जबरदस्ती अधिकार कर लेना Golconda as the company traders moved to Bombay, now Mumbai, Calcutta, now Kolkata, and Madras, now Chennai. Mosalipatnam lost both its merchants and prosperity. So students, you have today learnt about towns, traders and craft persons, and you will also read chapter number 6 in your NCERT book. Read this chapter complete. The architecture splendor of Hampi, the gateway to the west, that is Surat, fishing in troubled waters, that is Mosalipatnam, the new towns and traders, and you will read about Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus on page number 88. Try to read this chapter. So this is a presentation by Mrs. Neelam Jain. Students, thank you. Read this chapter from your book also, NCERT book. Until then, stay alert, stay healthy, mask yourself, take proper care, obey your parents. Thank you. Stay blessed. God bless all of us.